center on the weekend. Funny how I kinda like this life. Funny now I kinda like this life. I like this life.
Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you?
Started as a whisper, message from a new world I'd never known. Something about it felt like it'd been waiting my whole life. Is this home? I can hear each sound calling my name, and I feel angels around when I start to sing inside. can hear each sound calling my name, and I feel angels around when I start to sing, and suddenly it feels like heaven's not so far away. Tell me, can you hear the symphony?
I don't wanna say anything, cause if I do I might say the wrong words. Oh no. So I'll keep my mouth shut and not listen, afraid I lose you if I didn't. Till we find what we're missing and compromise. So I'll keep my shoes on and not leaving. We're on thin ice, winter season. Can't we find a single reason not to say goodbye? Don't know what to do anymore. I'm out of options, nothing's working. I'm out of service. Come help me now, I'm fucking nervous. I'm trying but can't scratch the surface. So I'll keep my mouth shut and not listen, afraid I lose you if I didn't. Till we find what we're missing and compromise. So I'll keep my shoes on and not leaving. We're on thin ice, winter season. Can't we find a single reason not to say goodbye? Oh, if I said what's on my mind, would you stay with me tonight? If I said what's on my mind, would that make you run and hide? Run and hide. Run and hide. If I said what's on my mind, would that make you run and hide? Would that make you run and hide?
Clouds are stirring up the sky. I was always in denial of what I saw right in front of me. And every time I'm so damn lost to what I loved and what I lost. But let's get lost in love tonight. Hear a second voice inside my head. It's telling me to stay the night again.
Swear we'd never say goodbye. Fall asleep to lullabies with something that I thought I'd never find. And what is right and what is wrong, and all I ever saw was love. But let's get lost in love tonight. Hear a second voice inside my head, it's telling me to say the night again, and hold on to the words we always said would be forever, forever. Wait another day to clear my thoughts, so jump into a love that won't be forgotten. Forever, forever, let's run away together. Let's run away together. Let's run away together. Wait another day to clear my thoughts, so jump into a love that won't be forgotten. Forever, forever, let's run away together. Feelings, it's like I can't walk on the ceiling. Oh yeah, got me dreaming, dreaming in colors I never dreamed in. Oh yeah, I let you in deeper than I let anyone else before. Fell in love with my broken pieces, took them all and made them yours. Didn't know what my heartbeat needed, skipping out, no I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Oh. Magic, no, I'm never letting go. Now that I have it with you. When you kiss me, it's like the stars fall out the sky onto my heart to cover up what I don't wanna show. I let you in deeper than I let anyone else before. Fell in love with my broken pieces, took them all and made them yours. Didn't know what my heartbeat needed, skipping out, no I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do,
Over the past week, Te Pāti Māori had added a post to their Instagram story. Now, it's not one of those things where it's permanent because it's a story, so unfortunately, whilst we have the clip, it's not easily accessible or viewable on their timeline or anything like that anymore. Nonetheless, this is what the Te Pāti Māori Instagram account put into their story, and it's basically the massive sob story that they invented in order to try and rally the troops, so to speak. And we'll break it down a little bit more, but nonetheless, they've used a young boy to repeat a bunch of scripted lines of which he has no understanding of, no ability to comprehend, and they're using that as a means to appeal to their broader voter base. So here it is.
Pākehā arrive here to Aotearoa to steal our lands and get rid of our culture. You almost stole all of my land. You almost killed my language. You almost made my tupuna believe they were less than you. You tried. You failed. I am still here, and I am stronger than ever, because I walk in both worlds.
The first thing he says is that Pākehā arrived in Aotearoa to steal our land and get rid of our culture. I mean, Pākehā 100% came here and wanted to utilise land, yes. And that was after a very long period of time that they were able to do so, including the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, including the land sales, legitimate land sales, I might add. And then to get rid of the culture. So was that the reason why Pākehā came to this country? Was it to come here and get rid of Māori culture, basically erase Māori from existence altogether? I've certainly seen no evidence of that. Sure, you might argue that some Pākehā throughout history have very much not liked Māori, have very much not wanted their culture to be around. Sure, you could argue that periods in time there were policies which some Māori may indeed argue as being culturally erasive. Nonetheless, to sit here and suggest that that was point blank what the Pākehā were here to do, what the Crown came here to do, would be a lie. And they've got a child to repeat that lie to you. He then goes on to say that the Crown almost took all of his land, that the Crown almost killed his language. But on both counts here, he would be completely incorrect. For starters, the majority of the land that Māori lost throughout that time period to this day was either sold legitimately or, for the most part, confiscated within the bounds of the law. You see, unfortunately, whether they want to admit it or not, the many Māori who take claims to say that their land was stolen, the majority who actually claim it's stolen have absolutely no idea what happened whatsoever, to be fair. But the majority who decide to say that this land over here was stolen because it was confiscated refuse to acknowledge the fact that it was confiscated because of a law passed in Parliament. A Parliament which had the authority over all of the land to pass laws and for those laws to come into effect based on what Article 1 of Te Tiriti o Waitangi says. So whilst sure there will be certain instances where the confiscation wasn't deemed justified, where the laws probably were skirted somewhat, where they were abusive in their powers, generally speaking, if we're being completely frank, they were confiscated because the law allowed them to, because they had the authority to create the law. And as such, sitting here and saying, because you lost your land due to confiscation, I don't know, probably because you were rebelling against the bloody government, to suggest that that is somehow an unfair outcome is, well, quite frankly, I don't get it. Essentially, the video concludes by him saying that the Crown nearly made his ancestors feel like that they were lesser than Pākehā, that they were lesser than the Crown, and that regardless of all that, regardless of everything that the Crown's tried to do to oppress Māori and make Māori, lose their language, lose their culture, lose their land, lose their identity, lose absolutely every element of their being, despite the inaccuracies in that he is still here and he's stronger than ever. For starters, if you're here and stronger than ever, that suggests to me that, well, whatever the Crown was allegedly doing either never happened at all or they were really, really bad at it. And given the Crown's track record on colonisation, I probably think they're not very bad at it because they've got a lot of practice. But me being a bit disingenuous aside, this annoys me. This frustrates me because they're getting a kid who has absolutely no idea what the history says outside of what his family has told him, or no idea of whoever coached him to make this video, whatever they've told him. He's got no idea what he's talking about. He's just repeating the words. And the reason why this is so disgusting to me is because of why it's being done. It's because the Pāti Māori know they can't rely on facts and logic to win an argument. They can't rely on facts and logic to draw a crowd. They can't rely on facts and logic to build a revolution. No, they have to rely on manipulation and political propaganda. The reality is, this is an appeal to emotion fallacy. An appeal to emotion fallacy, that is all it is. It's saying, hey, look, here's a small kid. You should feel sorry for this kid. Listen to what he's saying. Listen to all these things. We don't need you to question what he's saying. We don't want you to think, hey, is it what this kid's saying actually true? No, because you just see a kid. He's saying all these things. You'll take it as gospel because it's a kid. Why would a kid lie? It is, I was just saying on X the other day, whoever is in charge or whoever is coaching Te Pāti Māori on their political propaganda or their ads or whatever, this sort of stuff, needs a raise because they are probably getting a decent amount of cut through here because people will look at this and just think, bingo, yep, I 100% agree, cannot disagree at all. But I mean, that's the power of propaganda, isn't it? And that is all this is. This is propaganda designed to manipulate the masses. Now, many people such as myself won't even have a bar of it. I saw straight through it from the second I saw. But, you know, the fact that they would go to these links shows that they don't have confidence in their own position. They don't have confidence that they are on the right side of history. No, what they want to do is they want to stoke a revolution. And what is the better way to get people behind a revolution is to appeal to their emotion. And that is one of the reasons why Te Pāti Māori is so dangerous. This week, New Zealand changed forever. Some people will call that an overstatement. Some people say I'm exaggerating. Some people might think I'm scaremongering. Is that right? Well, last time I checked, no other political party in recent history, or ever in this country, has declared political independence for an entire ethnic group. Have they? No other political party has declared that they don't recognise the parliament they work for as being sovereign. No other political party has actively sought to disrespect the parliamentary institution that we have in this country in every way they can possibly see fit. Whilst the government is delivering their budget speech, Pāti Māori's out there saying, we don't recognise the Crown, we're going to create our own parliament. The number of developments this week that, quite frankly, the media isn't even taking seriously. News Hub called it, quote-unquote, a stunt. Cheers, Jenna Lynch. Why are they not taking it seriously? Do they seriously think Te Pāti Māori's bluffing? Do they think the policy Te Pāti Māori have had for the last half-decade is bluffing? No, Te Pāti Māori understand they can't implement what they want to implement. And as such, they're just going to go about and do it their own way. They don't care about the process. They don't care about a legal process. I noticed News Hub a couple nights ago, they were like, Te Pāti Māori have already established that they want to create their own parliament. They're beginning that process. As if somehow that's not a bad thing. As if this is like, oh yeah, let them go about it, whatever. That's what they're going to do. But of course, they're just going to go away, spend a few months discussing how they're going to do it, and then bring something before the government. As if they're going to bring a proposal to the government that the government can implement in a constitutional manner. As if that's what's going to happen. No. What's actually going to happen is the Pāti Māori and all of the people that support them are going to go away. They're going to come up with what they want to do. They're going to come to the government. They're going to say, hey, look, government, this is what we are doing. You don't have a say in this. We don't need you to do anything. We are doing it. And if you don't aid us in this, we're doing it anyway. So you can either do it the easy way or the hard way. The Pāti Māori are going to go ahead and establish their Māori parliament with or without the approval of government, with or without the approval of parliament, with or without the approval of the sovereign, because they don't care. They have no interest in what the sovereign thinks. They have no interest in what the Crown thinks. They have no interest in what anyone but themselves think. they will do what they want to do. No one gets to dictate to them how they shape this parliament of theirs. New Zealand has officially changed forever with these sentiments coming out of Te Pāti Māori this week. The reality is, this all started somewhere. And this time last week, when I was posting the video about Te Pāti Māori stoking a revolution, the daughter of Te Pāti Māori President, John Tamihere, and the wife of Te Pāti Māori co-leader, Rawiri Waititi, was saying some very interesting things on social media, to say the least. In fact, there's a very long video of her explaining just exactly what she thinks of the Crown, just exactly what she thinks of how Māori should view the Crown and how they should go about their lives. And this is really what kicked off the week of revolution. So when I put in the title of that segment from last week, Stoking Revolution, I was not joking. Within 3 days of that being released, Te Pāti Māori officially declared revolution, explicitly so. But of course, the media don't take it seriously. Very few people have any idea just what Te Pāti Māori are doing, not even their own supporters. And those that do, they actually joke about it thinking it's going to be a positive. Anyone that's short-sighted is part of the reason we're in this mess in the first place. So we're now going to take a look at what Kiri Tamihere Waititi has been saying over the past week.
Wake the fuck up and realise that continuing to fuck around in a system that was designed to fuck us up is going to keep fucking us up. Over 180 fucking years, we've subscribed to a system that treats us like fucking second-class citizens in our own country. It's never changed. We think it's got better and it hasn't.
Where's the thing, right? She starts off already just coming out swinging, suggesting that the entire system we have before us here today in New Zealand is designed to oppress Māori. That's its purpose. It's there to oppress Māori, keep Māori dumbed down, keep Māori unable to succeed. Meanwhile, I don't know many people that have done this personally. Meanwhile, she's been to France recently. In the last year, 18 months, she's been to France, along with her husband, Rawiri Waititi. It's an awfully weird way to oppress an ethnic group, isn't it? She's been to France. She's seen the house that her father owns. That thing's worth millions. She is the epitome of an elite Māori who, quite frankly, is completely out of touch with the average person, has very little in common with the average Māori that's living paycheck to paycheck. She has very little in common with the average Pākehā. She's completely out of touch. I mean, she's an educated person. She's a clinical psychologist. That's an awfully strange way to oppress someone. You're so oppressed, I gave you a bloody education. You're so oppressed, you live in a much nicer house than the majority of the population. She's sitting here lying to the very people that elected her husband, that give the party she represents relevancy, so that she can control them, so that she can get what she wants. She can get what her father wants. She can get what her husband wants. She can get what those at the top of the Pāti Māori want, which is control over the Māori people. Their policy speaks for themselves. That Māori would be required to go into the Māori role, and that Māori role would, of course, then be implemented into the Māori parliamentary system. Now, the Māori parliamentary system is something that's a little bit up in the air as to how exactly that would take shape. It seems that it would likely be reliant on iwi and hapu, and there would be representatives to that extent. Well, it sounds like a bit of a shambles, but we'll go into that a bit later. Kiri Tamihere Waititi really just isn't in a position to make these claims of oppression when she's better off than most people who aren't even Māori. And it's likely she's had more money, more expensive experiences, more opportunities than any of you watching at home. Any of you. Yet no, she's oppressed. And by the way, unless you're Maori, you're not oppressed. Even if you are living in the gutter, you're homeless, downing a bottle a day, you're still less oppressed than her because she said so.
And every little incremental benefit we get, we think, getting closer and closer to mana motuhake. We're full of shit. Mana motuhake doesn't lie in that place, and it never ever will. But at what point do we fucking decide that enough is enough? Investing in a system that's feasting off our failure is enough. When do we stop talking about Tino Rangatiratanga? When do we stop talking about sovereignty? I am the sovereign. When do we start acting in that? When do we start moving from the attitude of I am the sovereign to behaving in the attitude of I am the sovereign?
And see, this is the other important thing. At the end of the day, New Zealand, whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, New Zealand has a sovereign. Right now, it's the monarch, King Charles, right? That's just a fact. That is the fact of this nation. This is a constitutional monarchy. Now, I don't necessarily like King Charles myself. That's okay. I respect the institution. I understand it's there. I can't just say I don't recognize this country as being a constitutional monarchy just because I don't agree with it. No, I'm sure I can advocate for a republic. Sure, if I wanted to, I could, yes. But that doesn't mean I can just come out here and say I am the sovereign. You have rights as an individual. You have many rights as an individual. In fact, you have more power over the direction of this country than the sovereign. That's a fact. But that does not mean that you are the sovereign. That doesn't mean you stand up and say, you are the sovereign, King Charles is not your king. You may not recognize him as having any authority over you, and in practice, he actually doesn't. But this kind of rhetoric is pushing the idea that Maori are superior to others. Maori have a different standing than others. Just the other day, I had someone try and tell me that Maori chiefs were on a par with the monarch. On a par. Of course, that's utter nonsense. But this is the kind of rhetoric that this reinforces.
Continuing to fuck around in this bullshit system is making us beg. We're still begging for Pākehā to recognise us. What the fuck? We're just begging all the time. Pākehā, please. Please see me and my Māoritanga and my tangata whenuatanga. Please give me some money. Please recognise how much you've hurt me. And please recognise how much land you've stolen. And please, can you just give me some money back? When are we going to stop asking for permission? We have to start fucking asserting our sovereignty, acting in our sovereignty. It was never ever taken away from us. But we're behaving like it was. We're continuously behaving like our sovereignty was stripped from us, and it never was.
And this is the key issue with the whole rhetoric, the whole narrative, I should say, about the Te Tiriti o Waitangi not ceding sovereignty to the Crown. I mean, as a fact, it did. And any scholar who thinks they're credible, who claims to the contrary, simply has no regard for the truth, has no ability to look at anything objectively, because if you actually look at what it says and you do so with just this little tiny amount of credibility, a little tiny amount of humility, a little tiny amount of objectivity, you will establish it was quite clearly ceded. You cannot tell me, you cannot sit there in good faith and tell me that Article 2 trumps all, that Article 2 can contradict Article 1 and Article 3 so easily. Any interpretation of what Te Tiriti o Waitangi says that contradicts itself is not true. Any and all interpretations of such documents should be consistent throughout and not contradict each other in any areas. And so any scholar, any expert, any lawyer who sits there and tells you, yeah, it means this, even though it contradicts this and this, anyone that says that is full of it. I'm not going to have it any other way. But that's the issue, right? It's not a matter of just, Maori didn't cede sovereignty and so we should recognise that. No, She's full on saying that based on this narrative that I invented, that I have other ideologues within the legal system support, we're just going to assert our sovereignty. We should be asserting our sovereignty. We should say, you know what? If you monarchy, we're going to assert our sovereignty. If you government, we're going to assert our sovereignty. This isn't just a simple matter of, oh yeah, I think we should have a discussion about this because we never ceded, even though you did. It's not a matter of, well, we should just have a simple discussion. It's a matter of, we're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. We view the world a different way, so we're just going to act how we want. We view ourselves as different, so we're going to act as we want. We don't want you to dictate to us, so we're going to dictate to you. We don't want to participate in the democratic process in this country, so we are going to strip ourselves away from that and do as we want. That is what the Pāti Māori stand for. That's what they're advocating for. A disregard of the democratic process, a disregard of our constitutional arrangements, a disregard of Te Tiriti o Waitangi in its entirety, whilst all the same citing it. The perks of being able to pretend something says what it does not. It enables you to reinforce a nonsensical narrative to push for a political outcome that you want. But no mistake, this has been decades in the making. In fact, you could arguably say this entire thing is dating back, predating the land wars.
Kia kaha kia tātou. This government is launching an all-out attack on us as a people, on our very identity as tangata whenua, as Maori. We are under siege by this government. They're doing everything in their goddamn fucking power to get rid of us.
And here comes they are trying to erase us narrative. If you can convince those who don't know any better that the government that we have is trying to erase them, is trying to eradicate them, is trying to oppress them, if you can convince them with outrageous language that you haven't substantiated, well, then you can convince them to follow you to war. You can convince them to follow you in whatever direction you see fit. In this case, towards a Māori parliament, towards Māori political independence. These people are not genuine. These people have no regard for process. They have no regard for truth. They will say and do whatever they want, so long as it advances their cause. And in this case, by lying to the people, by lying to those who don't know better, by telling them that the Crown wants to erase them, wants to effectively commit genocide against them, by doing so, they believe, and they will, unfortunately, convince some to follow them on their journey towards a separatist country.
And they're creating all these little fucking distraction techniques with their bullshit little submissions, 5 days of a submission here, 5 days of a submission there.
All these distraction techniques, otherwise known as due process, so that the general public, including Māori, can have their say on any laws that are being passed. Apparently, the process in which Māori can have their say is an oppressive tool designed to prevent Māori from having their say.
O atu wera, we need to stop getting caught up in the weeds and look at the big picture. That we're continuing to subscribe to a model that was designed to assimilate, to continue to colonize, and to keep us as second-class citizens in our own country.
And I don't really need to address all of that. I'll just address the second-class citizens part. Love, you were in Paris like less than 2 years ago. I don't need you to talk to me about second-class citizens, thanks. Unless I haven't alluded to it already, have you seen your father's house? That's anything but a second-class citizen's house. Have you seen the Maori economy? That's anything but an economy that belongs to second-class citizens. Have you seen the fact that Maori have special electoral rights? That's anything but second class. And when I say special, I don't mean ones that reduce Maori's ability to have input into our system. It's ones that enhance it, that give them privilege in our parliamentary system. Maori electorate seats guarantee that Maori will have who they want representing them in Parliament. Guarantees. Guarantees. No other ethnicity has that. If anything, everyone else is a second-class citizen because Maori have preferential or privileged parliamentary laws for them. There are people in this country who have no idea just how privileged they are to have these ethnicity-based laws that enable them to have better representation. No idea. They actually view them and say the fact that anyone would suggest that these are wrong is racist, despite the fact that the existence of them is racist. The existence of them should actually insult you. The existence of them tells you that Māori cannot succeed in the parliamentary space without them. Of course they can. For many it helps. For many they simply just don't appeal to enough people that they can get into Parliament any way other than through a Māori electorate seat. But that being said, the current government has the highest, one of the highest makeups of Māori MPs, Māori ministers, despite not having a single Māori electorate seat. How have they managed that one? Simply by being appealing to the general voting public. They don't need no separatist, they don't need no racist nonsense to speak on behalf of Māori. But of course, the Pāti Māori being radicals, well, they have to rely on a small group of radicals to elect them.
Kei te noho wehe rawa atu mātou. By design, we are not unified, right? But you just imagine, just take one fucking minute of your day to imagine if we were all on the same page, not for my own little iwi or my own little hapu or my own little whānau, if we happen to be, just imagine, all on the same page for the sake of all of our mokopuna, Māori mokopuna. Can you imagine the might and the power that we would have? We could overthrow any government.
And then the penny drops. If Māori united, they could overthrow any government. Why say that? Why say that? Unless your intention was to mobilize Māori to either overthrow the government or no longer recognize them and establish your own separatist pocket of the country. Well, the answer is you wouldn't. Those are the two reasons you'd do so, and that's the two reasons they have. It's the two reasons she has said this. The irony is, Māori have never been united as a people across the whole country, have they? They're tribal. That's how they were. Before colonisation, after colonisation, they've always been tribal, and that's okay. Every civilization has differences about them. Some civilizations are tribal. So this fundamentally suggests that Māori have never been united. So the idea that this tool that the Pākehā, the colonisers, have used to keep you separated and simply retain the status quo, if not united you more. Because now there are more iwi working together than ever before. So this whole narrative is rooted on a lie. It's predicated on a lie, simply. You're just reinventing history to push the narrative so that you can indeed engage in your revolution.
We could do whatever the fuck we wanted. Because on top of that, is the Māori economy is worth $70 billion. When are we going to realise how much power we have? Step into that power and assert that power. We have been so successfully colonised, it's not fucking funny. Because the minute that we start to think about ourselves and guarding our own cabbage patch, you know, being the guardians of our own little kumara patch here, there, everywhere, that doesn't work. And we're doing a fabulous job at lighting little teeny fires here and there. Because I want to do this, I'm going to light this little fire, I'm going to go to the tribunal, I'm going to do this to the High Court. What does that do when we're fighting our own little teeny tiny wars? When we can just come together and launch our own full-on attack, launch our own full-on agenda without permission, without the need to ask for anything from anyone, but that we assert our right, under te tiriti o Waitangi to do what we need to do for our people.
In short, we need to do anything, absolutely anything, to take sovereignty of this country. We need to unite. We need to attack. We need to assert, and asserting by any means. She is explicitly outlining that Maori should rise up and overthrow the government. Explicitly. Not a word from mainstream media. Not a word. I even asked one of the journalists at the Toi Tu Te Tiriti protest the other day. I asked them, why haven't you covered the words of Kiri Tamihiri Waititi? She's just like, I'm just here to report on the hikoi today. That's it. Of course, that was always what she was going to say. But you know, the fact that not a peep out of mainstream media yet. Not a peep. Now, if Chris Lynch is correct from Christchurch Newsroom, police have at least started an investigation into the comments after complaints. So that's good. That's good to hear. But the fact that there hasn't been a peep out of mainstream media when this is one of the most influential people in the ears of the two most powerful men within Pāti Māori, that is extremely concerning. We can't shy away. We can't pretend it's not. We cannot pretend. Of course, New Sub thinks this is all a stunt. So, you know, she's riling up the troops. She's riling them up to act in whatever way Pāti Māori demands, even if they don't go to the lengths of physically overthrowing anyone. She's ensuring that she attracts a certain portion of the Māori population to back anything Pāti Māori says. Anything. And that is the revolution that they are engaging in right now.
Only the colonized mind, the severely colonized mind, believes so wholly in the system of parliament. And if you're one of those people, you have to check yourself. We all have to check ourselves. Because by investing and subscribing 100% into a model like this, we're committing our mokopuna to another 180 years of injustice. We are committing our mokopuna, the mokopuna that we haven't met yet, to being under the governance of Pākehā. And we're not allowing for them. We're not creating the environment to commit them to Tino Rangatiratanga. So think about it. We need to pull our heads out our asses and look at it from a bird's eye perspective, eh? What are we actually doing here? The decisions that we're making today, how are they going to impact the mokopuna that we haven't met yet? Really fucking think about that. When are you going to start acting in your sovereign? And while you're thinking about that, you might as well also start thinking about how we're going to take our country back too.
What's funny, actually, what's ironic, what's really ironic about how she ended it, how are we going to take back our country? I do believe Te Pāti Māori raised a few eyebrows at the whole New Zealand First, let's take back our country slogan at the election. Yet all of a sudden, Te Pāti Māori themselves are using that very slogan. Because it's okay to take back your country when you believe in the cause. You see, the likes of Winston Peters, they're trying to take back the country from woke radicals and idiots who try and implement racial separatism in this country. Oh, I mean, like from these people who want to literally implement it on steroids. People thought, hey, Pūpua was bad. This shit's on steroids. This is far worse. This is saying that we Maori, us 3%, despite the fact that our population is 17 to 20%, us 3% who voted for Te Pāti Māori don't recognise the government. No, actually, the idea of our children and our grandchildren being, you know, governed by these white people is disgusting. That is pretty much the vibe here. The idea that anyone who is not Maori governs our children, governs our grandchildren, governs any generation after us is revolting. Because Maori are superior in this area. In fact, the system of parliament is inferior to anything us Maori can dictate. Inferior. The system itself, just full stop, is inferior. Didn't even say inferior for Maori, just inferior. This is a Maori supremacist, ethno-nationalist supremacist movement. Simply no two ways about it. I mean, you cannot listen to what she said and tell me that she isn't an extremist, she isn't a radical, she isn't an ethno-nationalist, that she isn't, quite frankly, a supremacist in her beliefs, that she believes her beliefs are inherently supreme over others, that Maori are supreme over others, that Maori have greater rights and duties under law than others, that Maori are entitled to more than any others. How much more supremacist do you need to get? When do we stop hiding behind the stupid, woke ridiculousness of the 21st century and start acknowledging that, yes, Indigenous populations can be radical, Indigenous populations can be extreme, Indigenous populations can be racist, Indigenous populations can be supremacists. These people are rooted in a decolonization mindset. Decolonization means taking back all control. What, do you think that even if they take the long game approach of we just want a Maori parliament and to dictate law for all Maori, that they'll stop there? No, they will try everything they possibly can to wrestle as much control out of everything in this country from the hands of Pākehā. The more power they have to do so, the easier it will be for them. And I'm not doing this to scaremonger, I'm doing this to be real, because if no one's going to be real with you, who will be? Who will be? Will you be real with yourself? The media certainly won't. So unless you're sitting there and you're having this conversation with yourself every day, who's going to tell you? Who's going to tell you? The person that the media calls racist for saying it? The people that Pāti Māori demonize for saying it? Who? Someone has to, and I will. Now, on Thursday, I was at the Toitu Te Tiriti activation, right? And that was the activation that Pāti Māori organised, because that's what they do. It's their kind of little branch off from their party that they use to activate their little group of radicals or those who are none the wiser to oppose the government whenever they say go. It's a little bit controlling, to be fair. They could essentially in the future just say, hey guys, we're not happy with this group of people meeting over here. We're going to activate you to assert your sovereignty. There is the potential here that this turns into something a little bit more sinister. Nonetheless, when I was there on Thursday, it was very, very lethargic. And this is with respect to the Auckland one. Other ones might have been a bit better. But the issue was, is they met at Aotea Square. The sound system was very poor. You could barely hear anything that was being said. And people, generally speaking, were either disengaged or kind of trying to listen but had no idea what was going on because they couldn't hear anything. The actual march down Queen Street itself was fine. It was, there was noise in pockets, but people were just marching, having a family day out, really. It was uneventful. There was not much to say about it. That being said, it was only done because Pāti Māori wanted all eyes on them. They wanted all the attention to be taken away from the budget for whatever reason. They also wanted to capitalise on the budget and claim it's not doing anything for Māori, and therefore this justifies what they're doing even more so. They wanted all the eyes on them, and that's because they declared, the Pāti Māori, that they wanted Māori political independence. Or that they were just declaring that Māori do have political independence as of right now because they say so. Because they don't believe that the Crown, the government, has any authority over Māori whatsoever, and as such, the idea that they have any right to make laws for Māori, that any of the laws of the Crown, any of the laws of the New Zealand government apply to Māori is preposterous in their eyes. It just doesn't make sense. It's just not true. They don't view it that way. So regardless of the petition that they've sent out getting signatures, they have declared Māori political independence. Simple. And they've had a massive hui since discussing exactly that. And so here is Pāti Māori, I believe, Rawiri Waititi himself, declaring this. Today we had the conversation. We have started the conversation. We started the wānanga to organise ourselves in the Rangatiratanga, which is the self-determination, the Rangatiratanga space. Today we have started the revolution. This is what I meant. Last week I stated they're stoking a revolution, and they've now also officially declared a revolution. We will no longer let decisions made by this house determine our oranga, the oranga of our people, our mokopuna, the land, and te iwi Māori katoa. We now begin the process of establishing our own parliament. Our people will design what this looks like for us, nobody else. Very, very clear. Māori political independence. They don't recognise the sovereign. They don't recognise the laws of parliament. They were making their own parliament. And no one except Māori dictates how that parliament is going to look. Simple. That is what they declared on Thursday. That's why they wanted all eyes on them. Of course, News Hub called it a stunt. Because they're ignorant, because they don't do a little bit of research. Not even a little bit. This is very, very consistent with their policy for a long time. But that's what it is. The media aren't remotely taking this seriously. They think this will blow over. They think Pāti Māori will just whatever. In fact, I'm getting the impression that even if they come to the realization that Pāti Māori's serious, they don't actually care. That it's just going to be something to cover, and it's just, oh yeah, whatever. It's just constitutional change, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's not going through the democratic process. Doesn't matter if no one seems to care. The thing is, the reason why the general public isn't outraged about this is because the media isn't telling them. Unless you watch the platform, unless you watch the Eerjk McRae Show right here, unless you follow the right people on social media, you will be utterly clueless as to the true extent of what's actually going on. You may have heard on News Hub One News that Māori have declared political independence, but you've likely also heard that it's just a petition. A petition, which they don't actually care about, it's just there to use as leverage. Because if they can get enough signatures, then they can leverage the government. They can demonize the government further, saying, hey, look, you are going against the will of the people here, sir. They don't care. They don't even want a referendum on this. They just want to do what they want to do. They don't care. All of this is a ploy to do what they want and get away with it. I don't even think the government is going to be able to respond or is willing to respond until it's too late. News Hub the other day suggested that Pāti Māori was going to put together a proposal of the Māori Parliament and then bring it to government later in the year. As if somehow they were going to bring forward some bill that should be drafted and go through the parliamentary process and go through some process of having a referendum, some legitimate process. No, of course they don't. Have you not been listening to Te Pāti Māori? They do not recognise the system. They do not recognise Parliament. They do not recognise the sovereign. They don't care about what the Parliament says. They don't care about what the general public says. They don't care at all. They're not going to rely on Parliament to pass what they want going through. They don't care about that. They're not going to rely on a referendum hoping of the goodwill of the people to do what they want. No. They're going to bring something to the government and say, hey, government, this is what we're doing. You can either stand in our way or you can just let us pass gracefully. If you stand in our way, well, then I think we might have to go back to what Kitty Tomihere Waititi was saying, which was that we should just assert our sovereignty and do whatever we want. That is what's going to happen. They've stated outright that they can overthrow any government if they're united. This is a tool of unification, albeit by dividing an entire nation. Now, I'll just finish off by acknowledging that the Maori king, Kingi Tuheitia, he has acknowledged that this whole thing frightens him. The idea frightens him, whether he was just doing it in jest, which it was an element of a jest to what he said, but at the same time he looked like, I understand how Māori operate. I understand that Māori are tribal people, that Māori can be very, very stubborn, that Māori would certainly like to look out for number one, and when I say number one, I mean hapu before the broader context. So, you know, he understands how complex that will be, especially if it's done in a way which is reliant on each hapu has representatives, and then obviously they want like a two-house system or an upper house and a lower house type vibe, whether or not that's going to be a lower house filled with, you know, hapu representatives and an upper house filled with iwi representatives, or how they're going to do that, it'll be very, very complex, I imagine. But he acknowledges that this is going to be very complex. It is going to have a lot of friction throughout its entirety if it goes through, and I presume the intention is very much to push ahead with it. So he questioned, he's like, do you want to do this? Now, the other thing about this is they've outlined an intention to place Kingi Tuheitia in a spiritual guidance type role. Kind of above all else in the house, but as a spiritual guidance type role. Almost as if he's making a mockery of the role that the sovereign plays in our current government, in our current parliament. It's a ceremonial role, but you would argue it's one of spiritual guidance in theory, even though no one would listen to King Charles about what they should have for breakfast, to be fair. But I think you get my point, right? It's basically supplanting what the role of the monarch is in our current system and saying, hey, look, we're just going to replicate that in our Maori system just to really stick it to the man one little bit more. And I think that's arguably the most insulting part of it all. Now, if you follow me on X, you'll know that I made an argument about as to why Rawiri Waititi should be arrested and charged with treason. Now, this could arguably be extended to everyone involved with the Toitu Tetiriti crowd. Could be arguably extended to all of them. And it has raised some controversy. Some people think I'm reaching, that I'm really, really trying to misrepresent what the legislation says. And unfortunately, because the sedition laws were repealed, I kind of have nothing else to rely on except treason. Had the sedition laws not been repealed, 100% he'd be guilty of sedition. 100%. So would his wife. So, there is no denying here that at least 18 years ago, 16 to 18 years ago, he would have been guilty of a crime. Now, I have to make a full-blown legal argument as to why he's guilty. And because it's a full-blown legal argument, I will be reading directly for it because I do not want to misspeak. And I want you to understand as well as possible. Now, this is not me reaching. This is me trying to look at the law as objectively and applying it in the appropriate context of this situation. Because if we do not apply it based on the context of the day, well then, when are we ever going to use something? Laws that are designed to only apply in one situation, really, why bother with them at all? Especially when they're written in a way where it doesn't clearly only relate to a specific situation, and it does require some interpretation with respect to context. And so in this context, I am writing this. And you may disagree, that's fine. I'm not suggesting for a second that anyone should actually act on this. I'm just simply saying that I think it's a fair and reasonable argument to make. So as many of you know, laws and the application of them take a degree of interpretation. Often interpretation will differ case to case in order to apply them in varying contexts. When laws are created, they may be written in such a way as to fit the most likely scenario said law would be applicable. And it is with this in mind that I make the argument for the immediate arrest of Te Pāti Māori co-leader Rawiri Waititi. Section 73E of the Crimes Act 1961 states, uses force for the purpose of overthrowing the government of New Zealand. Now, if you haven't yet heard, yesterday Rawiri Waititi, in conjunction with his party, announced the political independence of Māori. Now, of course, this is a few days ago now. He stated, we continuously allow this house to assume that it has sovereignty and absolute superiority over Māori. Today we made a declaration in the name of our mokopuna. We would no longer allow the assumption of this parliament to have superiority or sovereignty over Te Iwi Māori. Today we had the conversation, we have started the conversation, and we started the wānanga to organise ourselves in the Rangatiratanga space. Today we have started the revolution. Now, the argument you may now have is that how does this above correspond with the criminal act outlined in section 73E? Allow me to explain. The key words to keep in mind here are force and overthrowing. Now, I'll quickly reread what the actual law says. Uses force for the purpose of overthrowing the government of New Zealand. So bear in mind again the key words force and overthrowing. Force. Make someone do something against their will. In this case, Rawiri Waititi announced the Pāti Māori are organising themselves into the Rangatiratanga space, and they're doing so against the will of the sovereign, against the will of the government, against the will of the voting public. They are doing it, they do not care about what the legal process is. They do not care about the will of anyone else. They are forcing us to go along with it, or forcing us to retaliate or do something differently in order to prevent them. It's either we do what they say, all these consequences. In this case, we can only hypothesize what those would be. Overthrowing. Put an end to something by use of force. Now, we've already established what force is. Put an end to something by use of force. In this case, the Crown's authority, sovereignty over Māori by rejecting any such authority and then establishing a Māori parliament in its place. When you typically think of overthrowing a government, you think of running in there, basically taking out everyone that's in charge and then putting yourself in their place. So when instead of applying that to an entire nation, perhaps apply that to an entire ethnicity. Right now, the authority, the sovereignty lies with the Crown with respect to governance, with respect to the laws that apply to Māori. Pretend no one else exists, and that's the status quo. Māori then come in and say, we no longer recognize you. In fact, we don't even need to go into your parliament. We don't even need to throw you out of your office. We're just going to no longer recognize your office and create our own one over here. It's the exact same thing. It's just going about it in a different way. It's just doing it in a non-violent way, seemingly, because they understand that in the current climate, they could arguably get away with that. And that's why they're going to at least try that first. And that's what they're doing. I'll say that again. Overthrowing. Put an end to something by use of force. In this case, ending the Crown's authority, sovereignty over Māori by rejecting any such authority and then establishing Māori parliament in its place. I don't know about you, but nothing says overthrowing the sovereign like no longer recognizing the authority of the sovereign. By no longer recognizing the authority of the sovereign, you are overthrowing the sovereign's right. And you're doing it against his will by forcing him to comply with it or else. We don't know what the or else is yet. But Rawiri Waititi's wife's given us a reasonable indication as to what that or else could be. By stating that Māori declare their political independence, rejecting the authority of the sovereign and its government, and declaring the process of establishing a self-determining Māori parliament, despite having no legal authority to do so, Rawiri Waititi has shown the clear intention to commit treason in accordance with Section 73E of the Crimes Act 1961. And some say, no, that's just not reasonable. Not reasonable at all. Well, I mean, sure, you can make the argument that it's not reasonable, but why not? Are they not rejecting the authority of the Crown? Are they not rejecting our sovereign? Are they not saying that we are going to, in effect, remove your authority as head of state, remove your authority as governor, and do that role ourselves? It's the same thing. Just because they're not occupying the ninth floor of the beehive, it doesn't mean they haven't done the same thing with respect to the authority and power the government has over Māori. Which, by the way, may sound a little bit sinister that someone would have power and authority, but of course it is done so within the bounds of an electoral system where the voters pick, right? And of course, in an ideal world, we would have a system that's been streamlined a bit more to place more emphasis on those in charge doing the bidding of the people rather than the bidding of themselves and their party donors. So, there's always things where we can improve, but, you don't have to occupy the office of the last government in order to do the same effect as overthrowing the government. So where do we draw the line? I mean, imagine tomorrow, Pāti Māori have officially established the Māori Parliament, and all of a sudden, let's say 15% of the population goes over and participates in whatever's going on over there. And there'll be a few Māori that stay over, but let's say 15% of Māori go over there, participate in the Māori Parliament, and no longer recognise the sovereign, no longer recognise New Zealand's government at all, in any way whatsoever. It's not two countries, it's just two parliaments, two governments, two sovereigns? Well, one, that's inconsistent with Te Tiriti o Waitangi, so that would be a bit odd. Secondly, that would suggest a separatist nation where people have different rights and duties depending on what parliament they're part of, that parliament, of course, being dictated down ethnic lines. So already we've established that it's a huge issue. But, where to from there? Is that not enough to constitute believing it's treason? What if, on top of that 15%, 40% of the population, let's say all of the Greens and Labour, decided they no longer recognise our government. They no longer recognise the authority of the Crown's government. No longer. And they say, we're going to go establish your own parliament. Well, now 55% of the population is no longer under the authority of the sovereign. So where has the sovereign not been overthrown in this situation? Tell me, where's the sovereign not been overthrown? A week ago, the sovereign had 100% of the authority. We still have to, every law that's passed still has to be signed off by royal assent. Sovereign still has the authority technically, although it's ceremonial. They had 100% of the influence, 100% of the control, in accordance with our election result, of course. And then within a span of a week, they lost 15% of the population who don't recognize them or the sovereign. And then another 40% of the population who don't recognize them or the sovereign. So tell me, where has the overthrowing of the government not happened? Where has it not happened? How can you go from 100% power to 45% power and not have been overthrown in some capacity? I mean, the sovereign really isn't the sovereign anymore because he has a minority stake in the control of the government, in the control of the nation. That is the same thing. It is overthrowing the government. You can't make the argument that it's not. Because treason isn't just about the monarch specifically, it's about the authority of the monarch. The monarch only has power through authority, and if you overthrow that authority over the specific realm, in this case New Zealand, well then you're overthrowing, effectively, the monarch. If tomorrow the Governor-General has no power, then the monarch has no power. That means you've overthrown the monarch in New Zealand. If 55% of the people of the country are following laws not passed by the Governor-General or not given royal assent by the Governor-General, then you have overthrown the government. That is just how it is. I mean, does it not need to be any clearer than that? Where is the line? Now, we had the Maori child in that propaganda video, but we also have Te Pāti Māori in the House of Representatives every other day talking the most ridiculous nonsense you've heard all year. You see, they don't really care about the truth. They don't really care about acting in accordance with what a common, decent person would. No, they care about being explosive. They care about being dramatic. They care about appealing to a very certain subsection of the population. And they do so because if they want to get the revolution they want, well, they have to appeal to people who are prone to being radicalized, people who are willing to fight back against the threat that Te Pāti Māori claims exists. So, for example, they'll talk about our current government and say that the current government wants to exterminate Māori, which is very odd considering that the Deputy Prime Minister is Māori and that this is one of the most Māori-heavy governments in the history of our nation. But you know, we can move away from that. We simply have to acknowledge here that they will say absolutely anything to advance their point of view. They will say anything to advance their position. Right, and this is the dangerous part. They will say anything and they will likely resort to any means to achieve their goals. Now, of course, their end game is that they want to basically separate themselves from the crown. They want to separate governance of this nation into two groups, people who come under the crown and people who come under the Maori Parliament. The Maori Parliament would be for everyone with Maori descent, and if their policy is anything to go by, if you are Maori, you do not have a choice. You have to go under their rule, and you don't have a choice in that matter whatsoever. That's at least according to their policy, because their policy, it doesn't state to the contrary. So this is the concern here. I know what we can see very, very clearly what they want. The problem is how they're going to go about it is inherently divisive and could lead to some very dark times ahead for this nation. So a prime example of this radical rhetoric in our parliament is from one of their newer MPs, Miriam Kapakingi. And well, this is probably another justification to get rid of the Māori seats, because in absence of the Māori seats, such a radical with such divisive and quite frankly repugnant views would not be in our parliament. So what has she had to say in recent weeks?
The parties of the government have doubled down on the extermination agenda for Māori. My use of that word, hold tight, my use of that word made a lot of you uncomfortable, and I'm glad to hear it. The repeal of Section 7AA is a targeted extermination of our babies. Hold tight, don't have feelings yet. Exterminating any ounce of culture, identity, and any sense of their Maori selves. What many don't have the cultural intellect, despite any other intellect, to understand is that a Māori person is different to a Pākehā. Moana Jackson in He Whai Pānga Hou said, a Māori person is shaped by cultural forces which are unique to their being Māori, and is subject to influences which are consequent upon that sense of Māoriness. So I speak to all the Māoris in this room. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And if you don't, you've declared to the whole House who you actually are.
Recently in the House, she stated that the government has doubled down on their extermination agenda of Māori. And then she goes on to say that she sees that it made many people in there uncomfortable and that she's glad to see that we're uncomfortable. Now, of course, she's glad to see that we're uncomfortable because it allows her to play into this idea that, you know, white people or people opposed to her party, people opposed to her position are trying to reject history. That this is an act of oppression by pretending that this is some nonsensical thing, or that it is an inherently defensive move to feel uncomfortable, and that by feeling uncomfortable, it suggests that there is validity to what she's actually said. And she simply has absolutely no regard for the kind of language she's using, which is very, very much inflammatory. She's stating that the repeal of Section 7AA in the Oranga Tamariki Act is the act of exterminating Māori through the erasure of their culture and their identity. And the reason for that is because it would mean that no longer do we prioritise culture over the well-being of children. Because that's essentially the reason why the Section 7AA within the Oranga Tamariki Act is being repealed, because it allowed, or at least it increased the likelihood of reverse uplifts, which means, let's say a child is Māori and they're adopted, or not quite adopted, but in care, I should say, foster care, and they're with a family that is non-Māori. Let's say they've been with them a couple of years, which has been the case in some of these instances, and they're in a very loving household. They're doing very, very well. By the looks of it, they're going to go on to great things. But Section 7AA, all of a sudden, the social workers in question and all of the people involved with the Oranga Tamariki making these kinds of decisions have a look and realise, we've just realised that there's this Māori family that is distantly related to them. And because they are Māori, if we do not put them with this Māori family, even though they're in a very, very good household now for the last couple of years, if we don't put them with this Māori family, well, then we're erasing their culture, that we are failing them, that they will not be successful, because it's Māori culture which allows Māori people to be successful. And it is inherently genocidal to not place a Māori child with a Māori family, even if the family that they're with, which was escaping from their dysfunctional Māori family, is one that is actually good for them. It doesn't matter how well they're doing in school, it doesn't matter how loving the family is. No, we will remove you from that family and we will place you with distant relatives like you've never met them, and we'll just roll the dice, see what happens. In some cases, in at least one case that I know of, I believe it was a girl. She was with a family that was non-Māori for quite some time, was doing very, very well. She was removed from that family, placed with a distant relative who happened to be Māori, and she was abused. She was placed with the non-Māori family because of abuse. She was removed and then faced abuse again, and she was only removed because she is Māori, and they decided that white people can't look after you, or whatever ethnicity that family happened to be, because only Māori know how to look after Māori. That is the core reason why Section 7AA is being repealed, because we want to reduce the likelihood of ridiculous decisions like that happening. Prioritising someone's ethnicity and their culture over their well-being is, quite frankly, barking mad. And they'll sit there and argue that, oh yes, but being embraced within your culture is part of your well-being. Sure. But if I am doing very, very well, and I'm going to go on to live a very successful life, why place me with people who have, quite frankly, no ability to provide better than what I already have? especially because when you do grow up, you have the ability, especially if you're doing well for yourself, especially if you're in a good place, to go and embrace your culture. Like, for example, right now, people may not know this. I am Maori by heritage, or at least one element of it. And I've grown up, for the most part, with absolutely zero exposure to it. In recent years, I've learned a lot more about it. And I'm one of the only people in my family that embrace it to the level that I do. For example, I'm very, very proud to state my iwi, which is Te Whānau Apanui, whereas no one in my family really mentions that at all. And hey, I can make the deliberate choice now as an adult to go learn more. I could go to a tikanga course tomorrow, and I've dabbled on that in the past as well. You know, I've spoken at Pōhiri before, in Māori. You know, these are things that are available to me despite the fact that I wasn't, strictly speaking, raised in a family which even discussed Māori culture. And that wasn't because my family has anything against Māori culture. That's simply because, for the most part, we were a European family. I mean, my mum's parents were British. my dad's parents were, whilst on this occasion having to have the Māori line connected, we're still South African and Scottish. So, I mean, you know, for the most part, I am European, and that's quite apparent when you look at me, isn't it? But that doesn't stop me. That doesn't stop me in my adult life embracing my culture, because I'm allowed to. There are many, many elements of my culture, of my ethnic background, which I have even less exposure to, even less knowledge of than Māori. So if in order to succeed, you need to be embraced within your own culture, well, then I'm doomed to fail, because there is so much about my ethnic background that I'm absolutely clueless about. There is so much about the culture related to my relatives from Eastern Europe that I'm absolutely clueless about. So the whole premise that the Pāti Māori like to approach this argument from is not only done in a way that is inherently divisive, but it's not even based on reality at all. And Kapakingi essentially finishes by not only calling the entire parliament a bunch of people that lack intellect simply because they don't agree with her, but they lack cultural intellect, which, whatever the hell that means. But, you know, outside of that, she doubles down on the idea that Māori are driven by cultural factors, whereas apparently no other group of people are. No other people are based on their culture. I mean, literally that's what differentiates cultures, is the differences in culture and how those cultures shape how you live. I mean, there's a very real reason why there are certain standards of discipline in, let's say, Chinese households relative to that of let's say, an English household. The standards, the cultural differences are there for all to see. I live with my dad at the moment, as well as his Thai wife. Now, she has very different expectations of someone my age and what position I should be in based on the cultural expectations in her home country of Thailand. And that's not because it's the only way to do something. For example, if I was living in the way that is expected in Thailand, I mean, sure, I'm very much sure I would be in a different position. The point being is I don't need to live one way or the other. I need to live in a way that works for me, works to advance my life, works to improve my quality of life and my well-being across the board. Do I need to rely solely on a culture related to myself to do that? No. Just as Māori don't need to rely solely on Māori culture to succeed, that would be utterly ridiculous. To suggest that one culture has a superior way of living is basically the grounding of every ethnic supremacist movement ever. And sure, she may say, oh, yes, but this only applies to Māori. So, for example, we don't expect non-Māori to live this way. We just expect Māori to live this way. Okay, and why don't you expect non-Māori to live this way? Well, I would imagine the argument is because, well, they're not Māori, so they can't have the same relation to, you know, this as us. That being said, the issue with her position is that it simply is not based on facts. There is not one set way for a human to live. Humans are very, very diverse. And it's, for that matter, pretty much every single Māori you'll meet is not just plain, simple Māori, are they? And last I checked, we dictate what we are. We dictate what culture we want to, adapt to. So, for example, tomorrow I could move to Japan if Japan wanted me, of course, and I could decide for the rest of my days to live very much in accordance with Japanese culture. I may thrive doing so. It is all about individual choice, and the government should certainly not dictate what culture someone grows up in. They should dictate only if a family is extremely, extremely dangerous to a child, and whether or not that child needs to be taken care of in an environment that is not dangerous. And that is fundamentally the point of uplifting children from families and taking them to new households. Reverse uplifts decide, we don't care if the household's good for you, we're going to remove you anyway because you don't have the right cultural views. But if I'm completely honest, I don't actually think Te Pāti Māori cares all that much about Section 7A8. No, it's just a very, very great opportunity to advance their cause, which is to implement a segregated society. Not just segregated by you can't go into this place and you can go into this place, segregated by law. As in, we can both walk down the street at the same time, sure, no problemo. However, I've got one set of laws and you've got another set of laws. My laws are dictated to me by the Crown, and your laws are dictated to you by Maori. Or the other way around, because obviously it's Maori that want this, or at least Te Pāti Māori that want this. And this is the problem. They want to implement a system a bit like the systems that you see with the UK, where you've got Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales with their own devolved powers in their national assemblies. But the reason why that works and it's not segregation is it's within certain boundaries, right? Scotland's a actual region, Wales is a region, Northern Ireland's a region, and every single person, regardless of ethnicity, if they are within that region, the law applies to them. No, what Te Pāti Māori wants is, one, either for every bloody Pākehā to ship out, and that kind of solves this issue, but they want to have the laws that they make apply to Māori and Māori alone, the systems in place to apply to Māori and Māori alone, and for everyone to live in the same place. We're talking husband and wife could have different rights under the law, which, funnily enough, breaches the very document that Te Pāti Māori will cite justifies doing this. Now, the top story this week, or at least it should have been, had the mainstream media actually picked up on it when they should have, is the whole Manurewa Marae scandal. Now, this has been in the news for a little over a week now, and yet the mainstream outlets like One News and News Hub have only been discussing it really a couple days. It's simply not good enough at all. But it just goes to show that if it doesn't fit the agenda, the mainstream media doesn't care. And in this case, they were forced to speak on it because there's 12 government agencies investigating it. So what is the Manurewa Marae scandal? Well, there's a couple kind of elements to it. But essentially, on one hand, you've got Takatai Tash Kemp, who is now the MP for Tamaki Makaurau, a Te Pāti Māori MP, who has turned up on election day, which is not really the right thing to do, to turn up at a polling booth on election day. They've also been allegedly breached the Electoral Act by committing the offence of treating during a certain time period leading up to the election. And additionally, on top of all of that, we've got some alleged misuse of data, or even collection of data, which is related to the Waiparato Trust and so forth, which is all through John Tamihere, who, by the way, is the Te Pāti Māori president. So it all kind of links in very nicely there. And I've got a couple things on there which links that even more. A couple things here to say which links to that even more. But it's I'm going to do this in a very simplistic manner. I want to go over just the key points. There's a lot of articles at the moment, a lot of insights that people have that are personal insights, I should say, that you can find online relatively easily, particularly on X at the moment, which will give you a much more in-depth insight into this. And so I would recommend doing so. But I'm just going to go over some key points here. Firstly, Takatai Tash Kemp, who is now the MP for Tamaki Makaurau for Te Pāti Māori, showed up on election day with her family from Taupo. Now, you really shouldn't be showing up at the polling booth as the MP of that electorate. or as the candidate for that electorate. Nonetheless, she did. I'm sure she can try and explain that away. Fortunately for her, it's a pretty high threshold, and that's the most minor of the offences, quite frankly. And it's worth noting she showed up to the Manurewa Marae polling booth, to my knowledge, and she was at the time the CEO, or the chief executive, of the Manurewa Marae. And so that shows the conflict of interest. That shows that she has a lot of control over what's going on there, and so it makes sense that she could get away with this behaviour. Additionally, there's the alleged breach of the Electoral Act in the offence known as treating. Now, treating is let's just say, in a certain time period before the election, a political party, a candidate, so forth, they cannot do anything that would be probably consistent with a bribe. So, for example, they can't give away free food to, essentially convince people to vote a particular way, or for it could be misconstrued that way, for example, right? So before the election, in that time period where treating is not allowed, I bumped into now Takanini MP of the National Party, Rima Nakali. Now, Rima Nakali, lovely lady, I met her, had a chat, 10, 15 minutes. Now, she explained to me what treating was, and so she because I met her at the coffee club, and so that's the context. So we were having a quick chat, and she was explaining this to me because it's fundamentally important that she made that clear. Not that I expected her to do anything of the sort, of course, but she explained that to me. And the fact that was the first thing that came to mind shows that she has integrity, shows that she was actively trying to abide by the Electoral Act. She was not going to be caught out breaking any of the rules there. So that was my first real insight into treating. And that was, I think, September, October last year. And that's something that Pāti Māori seemingly haven't followed, because they were advertising the following: free food at the polling booth, free hangi, donuts, hot chocolate, coffee on proof of voting. Now, this is being advertised by Pāti Māori for this. They now deleted those posts because obviously it doesn't look good, does it? Now, that is just point blank treating. I don't know why the threshold is supposedly so high and too high for that to be referred to the police, as the Electoral Commission has decided not to refer that to the police. I do not know what more you want. Like, seriously, we all know, anyone following Pāti Māori socials at that time knows this was happening. There were allegations of it on the day, in the days following. The fact that, one, it's taken months for us to get to this point, and for the Electoral Commission to turn around and say, nah, we're not referring that as a matter to the police or anything like that. We're not considering that needs much more input. I mean, I don't trust the Electoral Commission fundamentally. It just makes no sense. I feel like if this was a different political party, they might be taking a different stance. Now, additionally, Te Pāti Māori merchandise was allegedly handed out amongst electoral staff. Now, of course, these are staff rather than actual voters themselves, but if it was at all present and visible to those voting, I mean, that's not particularly good look either, and so that's something else that is being looked into, or at least it very much should be. But ultimately, it's a high threshold for all this stuff, and that's why the Electoral Commission hasn't referred it to the police. Now, I have it on very good authority from a very reliable source that a Waiparaira Trust board member with no affiliation with Manurewa Marae at all was actually at Manurewa Marae on at least the main polling day, if not every polling day, and was basically like an usher at the door. Now, he was described as giving off a mafia type vibe. You know, the vibe of he's there, but his intentions aren't very clear. You kind of know there's something a little bit fishy and off going on. That's the vibe. And that was the vibe that he gave off the day it happened. This is not some hindsight vibe. This is a vibe that was very much present and aware and commented on at the time by this individual, and of course doubling down on it now. So the fact that this guy on the Waiparaira board is there in the first place is weird. The fact that he's then ushering people in is weird, and the fact that he's giving off a vibe that he's kind of there for alternative reasons that aren't really what meets the eye, that also suggests that something fishy is going on. And as we can see with this investigation, something fishy indeed was going on. Not only did we have Takatai Tash Kemp show up, but we had several allegations of the Electoral Act being breached. And all of it seems to be centered around Manurewa Marae and the Waiparaira Trust. Interestingly, the Waipareta board member, whilst having no affiliation with Manurewa Marae, is, of course, working for the Waipareta Trust, right? The Waipareta Trust chief executive being John Samihere also being the president of Pāti Māori, and the candidate who was chief executive of Manurewa Marae being Takutai Tash Kemp. So, the affiliation isn't there, but it's also there, right? You can understand why he was actually there, even though, technically speaking, he probably shouldn't have been. To conclude, this just really highlights that Pāti Māori has no regard for our systems. They don't have any regard for maintaining the integrity of our systems. I mean, of course, in the last couple of weeks, they've rejected our parliament outright. They've rejected the authority of our parliament. But also in the process of getting elected to our parliament, they've allegedly breached several parts of the Electoral Act. They've clearly pushed the boundaries as far as they possibly can to the point where they've likely broken them. They are lucky that we have a seemingly compliant electoral commission who's going to let them get off scot-free without referring the matters to the police, which still doesn't make any sense to me. How is there not enough evidence in this case to show that they have clearly breached that act? I don't know. But whatever. There are many, many, many government agencies investigating this, and maybe that'll apply some pressure. Maybe that'll result in something occurring here. Maybe that'll result in consequences. Maybe that will result in a by-election. I don't know. Should there be a by-election? Based on what I've heard and seen, there bloody should be. You may disagree. Ultimately, I'm all for Pāti Māori packing up and shipping off tomorrow with respect to their officers in Wellington. Because they've got no respect for our parliament. They don't recognise it at all anyway. So why bother showing up? Why bother taking the seat away from the likes of Penny Henare, who I've met on one occasion? I'm not particularly a fan, but hey, I don't believe in getting cheated out of a seat either. And I'm not saying that that's a fact that he was cheated, but this doesn't look good. There was treating allegedly going on. I mean, there's social media posts basically proving it, even if they have been deleted now. There was Takutai Tash Kemp showing up on the day at the polling booth in the electorate that she is standing for. There was the alleged misuse of data from the Waipareta Trust to enable them to try and transfer people from the general roll over to the Maori roll in order to help boost their numbers vote-wise. This is all linked, and it's all very, very fishy. Ultimately, when we come back to it all, John Tamihere is at the centre of all of this. Even though we can try and hide behind a range of different things, John Tamihere is the focal point of everything happening with Pāti Māori, everything happening with this particular controversy with Manurewa Marae, with Waipareta Trust, all of this. He is one of the most corrupt individuals in this country with respect to politics and respect to these kind of iwi-led organisations and so forth. He cannot be trusted. He lacks integrity. And that's truly saying something about politicians, because we all know how it goes. You can't trust a politician as far as you can throw them.
You left a scar, a fallen
wanna know your dark side. I wanna know your secrets. I wanna be your lifeline. So I wait for you, wait for me. Wait for you, wait for me. Tell me you're more than just a highlight. Pretty pictures on the outside. I hate to stare at you through these lights. So I wait for you, wait for me. Wait for you, wait for me. Click and scroll, I can't let you go. They say I'm addicted to you. Click and scroll, I can't let you go. They say I'm addicted to you. Oh, oh, this ain't love, no, no. This ain't love, no, no. This is artificial. This ain't love, no, no. This ain't love, no, no. This is artificial.
I wanna know you inside and out. Wanna know what's behind the light. Wanna feel that real love from within. I want real love, real hearts. You're just enough to get me through, Cause you're officially perfect for me. So wait for you, wait for you.
Up all night thinking, passing the time, anxiously waiting. You're mine, losing and winning. You can't get it right. Hoping you see me for more than just nights.
Up all night thinking, am I on your mind? Will you come meet me and change my life?
This love could be deeper. Just
Thinking, will you love me?
click and scroll, I can't let you go. They say I'm addicted to you.
Addicted to you.
Click and scroll, I can't let you go. They say I'm addicted to you. Oh, oh, this ain't love, no, no. This ain't love, no, no. This is artificial. This ain't love, no, no. This ain't love, no, no. This is artificial.
I am here in the middle of nowhere. There is no there, it is cold there, but I am safe and I am warm. Although it's hard, I know I gotta keep up. No time to lay, to drift away. I find my space, I spend my time down the rabbit hole again. And as I fall, I can feel the pain. You can't tell me where to go, so I don't know, I just go with the flow. I go with the flow. I'm falling up, I'm falling down, from the sky and from the ground. I burn bright just like below, and I don't know where I should go. 'Cause I'm stuck in limbo. I'm out of love, but I guess I deserved it. Trying to hide, to pass you by. I'm getting down, feeling fine. I'm light as air, no one can reach me. Lost in a dream, lost in between. Let's keep on